Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
A special edition of the Stillman and Company program on the 440 Sports Network. This will not replace our later show today. Again, we'll be live 2 o'clock Central Time. But breaking news in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills have fired Sean McDermott, the head coach. McDermott was 90-58 across 9 seasons in Buffalo. They made the playoffs 8 out of 9 seasons. The one year they didn't make the playoffs was Josh Allen's rookie year. And now he's on the market. And so we got a lot to get into. And trust me, I have been keeping up with how you people feel because we are running a poll about the Titan finalists that we know of: Robert Saleh, Matt Nagy, Jeff Hafley. And I asked the people, I said, would you rather have Sean McDermott than have those guys? Because last night, when it feels like they finalized that list, it didn't feel like Sean McDermott was going to be on that list. And now we're at 83.2% of the people say, yes, go get Sean McDermott to go be the coach of the Titans. So I'll break it down like this, and then we'll get to your reaction here on the program. Number one, I was shocked this morning that Sean McDermott got fired. You know, I have been preparing for the Titans to hire a coach either today or tomorrow. I think it's going to be Matt Nagy. I think they're going to hire him and go from there. So I've kind of been on tilt of this, you know, trying to balance having a child and responsibilities, and telling Lynn's like, hey, at any second, there may be some news that breaks where I got to go jump on right away. And it's kind of a weird feeling. Well, this morning I told her, I said, I want to get what I need to get done out of the way early, just because I don't know what time the news may or may not break that the Titans are hiring a coach, that they're this, that. I don't know. I don't know when that's going to happen. And then I saw Sean McDermott fired in Buffalo, and I was like, whoa, holy shit. And I, like many of you, was sitting there saying, well, wait a minute. Sean McDermott, I mean, he's got to be a better coach than Robert Saleh, right? And I understand that McDermott is a defensive coach. And so, again, when you're developing a young quarterback, usually a lot of people think it's about the offensive coach. But McDermott was there when they got to the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback, and then they tore it down. And my understanding was, even though McDermott and Bean really worked together, Brandon Bean was hired for Sean McDermott, if I remember that correctly. And so Doug Whaley was technically the general manager when they decided to tear it down with Tyrod Taylor. Then they fired Doug Whaley and they hired Brandon Bean, and Brandon Bean was the one who was the general manager when they went and scouted Josh Allen and decided on him or whatever. Josh Allen is the real one success story where you took this quarterback clay and just molded it into a thing of beauty. What the Colts thought they were going to do with Anthony Richardson. And I think you could argue Mahomes kind of the same way in Kansas City, but you're not getting Andy Reid. Sean McDermott was the coach in 2018 and 2019 when they brought Josh Allen along slowly. And he was the coach, obviously, in 2020 when Allen popped. And he was the coach in 2021 when they had that epic playoff game against the Chiefs. I mean, he has been there, done that, as far as being the CEO of the team that developed the quarterback. He's lost coaches like Brian Dable and had to replace him. He's fired coaches who didn't work out like Ken Dorsey and then elevated Joe Brady. He has run a solid program in Buffalo. And I always want people to just at least keep that in mind a little bit. That said, let's get to the firing of McDermott when it comes to whether or not it was fair, whether or not it was right, whether or not. Let me start with this. I would have fired Sean McDermott after last year. The truth is, And I know every situation is different in the NFL. So even though there's a similar story that happened, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen here in Buffalo. But I've seen far too many times in the NFL where there's a coach who is a really good coach who coaches a team to a certain point, and after a while, for whatever reason, they just can't get over the hump. Tony Dungy with the Buccaneers is one that comes to mind. Dan Reeves with the Broncos is one that comes to mind. Where they coach and they coach and they coach and they're good, but they're just not good enough to seal the deal. That's what it felt like with me and McDermott, looking at him in Buffalo. It looked like no matter what the situation was, McDermott's Bills team was going to figure out a way to fuck it up. That's what it felt like to me. And that's how I felt last year when they they hosted Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and they still couldn't get it done. They hosted Kansas City in the divisional round, and they missed a field goal. Couldn't get it done. It's one thing to go to Kansas City in 2020 where you're the upstart team and you put up a fight, but you get beat. That's fine. And again, all these playoff losses were just so demoralizing because they all could have been prevented. I mean, again, Saturday's game, and I think they got absolutely screwed by the referees. And again, I know the rule is you have to survive the ground with the catch and all of that, but I think that those rules are somewhat subjective. I also not totally sure that I know what a catch is in the NFL, and I cannot be the only person who doesn't know what a catch is in the NFL. I can't be that only person. I thought they got screwed by the referees. I thought Josh Allen played poorly. But what was Sean McDermott doing before the end of the half? And that 3 points cost him the game. What was he doing at the end of the half? And this is the 8th time that's happened. What was his defense doing in 2021 against Kansas City? Josh Allen is in his prime. This was the year. Mahomes out of the playoffs. Lamar Jackson out of the playoffs. Joe Burrow out of the playoffs. With all due respect to Drake May, who is, I think, going to be in that class very soon, if not already in that class. This was not the gauntlet of AFC quarterbacks that you have to go through, and they've got a $55 million quarterback, and nobody else in these AFC playoffs has that kind of quarterback right now. And they couldn't get it done. And at some point, just like with Dan Reeves in Denver, it's time for a change. And so I understand how crazy it is when teams around the NFL stink forever and they give a second chance to an Aaron Glenn who hasn't shown that he knows how to coach at all. And then a guy who wins more than 60% of his games at 90 and 58, a guy who took the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs in 2017 for the first time since 1999, gets fired because he wins enough but doesn't win the big one. That's life in the NFL. And again, in these playoff losses, I think you can point to times when Sean McDermott has made mistakes coaching the game that, again, you say, hey, your defense should be able to hold up with 13 seconds to go against the Chiefs. Or you say, what were you doing before the end of the half? So I was surprised when this all happened and everything else, that they fired him, because I thought he was safe after the Jacksonville game. But again, this is the NFL. And in the NFL, results are expected. And you always raise the bar in the NFL. It's like if the Titans hire a coach, let's say they hire Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy goes 10-7 next year, and the Titans make the playoffs and they get bounced in the first round. Everybody will say, great job. Like, great job, Matt Nagy. Nobody expected 10-7. You made it to the playoffs. You got bounced in the first round. That happens. But then the next year, like, you can't go 9-8. You have to now go 12-5 and make it to the AFC title game, and eventually people get sick. No matter what level you win at, people get sick of it if you don't win more. And so Sean McDermott fired in Buffalo. I think it was fair. Now, one thing I don't know about, and there will be more that comes out here. Again, I don't cover the Bills. I don't listen to their press conferences every day. One thing that I do wonder is, what is the relationship between Josh and Sean McDermott? Because like with Elway and Dan Reeves, and I think with Lamar and Harbaugh, there was you got to pick one or the other. Again, I know Steve Bisciotti came out and said Lamar was wondering why people thought he and Harbaugh didn't see eye to eye. The Baltimore Sun ran a hit piece on Lamar Jackson saying he wasn't professional, spent too much time playing video games, and that his body may not hold up with the way he plays and the way he takes care of himself. That came from somebody. And it obviously didn't come from the owner, because the owner chose Lamar over the coach, and he's going to give Lamar a new contract. And the owner has said, Lamar better get his butt on the plane to help me interview these candidates, because Lamar's a partner here. The same way Pat Bowlen was a partner with John Elway when it came to replacing Dan Reeves. Now, they replaced Dan Reeves with Wade Phillips and then later Mike Shanahan. I wonder what Josh's role in this was. Like, did Josh say, hey, this is what it is, and we got to move on at coach? Did Josh say, hey, I will die for Coach McDermott, and Terry Pagula still said, sorry, but we're not winning, so on and so forth? Now, most people assume that the next head coach in Buffalo is going to be Brian Daboll. And that was my first thought when I saw that they fired him. This is Tyler Dunn. Tyler Dunn, he was the one that had that story, golongtd.com. He was the one that had that story. Has a lot of great Packers and Bills insight, which are two randomly different franchises, but he's a good reporter. You know, this is a national guy in Tyler Dunn. And he said a handful of options still out there at head coach. One element of our series in 2023 worth keeping an eye on: the relationship between Josh Allen and WNY, Western New York's own Brian Daboll. Several players said it was special. New York Giants stint didn't go well, but he is available. Again, that kind of reminds me of Elway and Shanahan, where Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. He and Elway got along great. Dan Reeves ended up firing Shanahan. Shanahan goes to the 49ers. Then Mike Shanahan takes the Raiders job, was god-awful with the Raiders in 2 seasons, like a season and a half, was god-awful. And then Denver ends up hiring him back to be the head coach to replace Wade Phillips, because that was Elway's guy. So even though he was god-awful with the Raiders, it's like, well, but John and Mike, you know, there's something there. I can see that with Josh and Daboll and saying, okay, hey, there's something there. Now, I don't know what they're going to do on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm sure they can figure that out. I also wonder another thing. The Ravens interviewed Joe Brady over the weekend. So the Ravens interviewed Joe Brady yesterday. Now, I wouldn't hire Joe Brady, because I think Joe Brady is too young and too inexperienced, and I think he's very dependent on his quarterback, but I don't know Joe Brady from a jar of Vicks. Joe Brady interviews with the Ravens. And you have to wonder if the discussion was being had in the building about who's more important, Joe or Sean. And if they think Joe is more important than Sean, then I can also see that decision being made. I argued this a couple of years ago when the 49ers ended up beating Detroit in the NFC title game, because Dan Campbell's stupidity about going for it on every 4th down led to the Lions really choking that game away, and a shot at the playoffs, and a shot at the Super Bowl, and I think a shot at winning the Super Bowl. And I said right then and there, I'd fire Dan Campbell. And people said, you can't fire Dan Campbell. How could you? I said, I'd fire him, and I'd make Ben Johnson, and we all thought at that time Ben Johnson was going to be the next coach of the Commanders. I'd make Ben Johnson the coach. Now, who's more valuable in that building, Dan or Ben? I think Ben is. Who's more valuable in the Bills building? I don't know this. That would be something where Brandon, being the general manager, and Terry Pagula, the owner, would have to say, we can't lose Joe and start over with Josh. And Sean has gotten us as far as he can get us. Let's make the move. So whether it's Dable or Brady, it feels like it's going to be one of those two guys to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. The other thing is, and again, it's the owners who make these decisions. It's the owners that sit there up in the luxury box. They don't have all the information. It's about who in the building they trust. It could just be that Terry Pagula was sick and tired of losing in the playoffs, and that he sat there in Denver and he was like, I am so sick and fucking tired of this shit. I am so sick and tired of blowing the game with 13 seconds to go at Kansas City. I'm sick and tired of losing at home in the playoffs to Mahomes. I'm sick and tired of losing in the AFC Championship game because we can't get a yard. I'm sick and tired of losing to Bo Nix with a broken foot because we gave up 30 effing points on defense when we've got the best quarterback on the planet. And I can understand losing to Mahomes, and I can understand losing to Joe Burrow, but I'm not losing to Bo Nix. I understand that. Now, what's crazy is, again, I always say this when it comes to coaches because I don't know these guys. And by the way, neither do you. And far too often, there's this like fan sentiment that, oh my God, this guy, he'd be a great coach. Or, oh my God, that guy, he stinks. He was horrible at that last job. And for instance, I think there's probably some people when it comes to Brian Dable, if he was to be the next head coach of the Bills, that are like, oh no, Brian Dable, he stinks. And I get that because of what happened in New York and the Wink Martindale stuff and everything else. I wonder, with the coaching moves we've seen, I wonder if Buffalo thinks about McCarthy. Because McCarthy does have a Super Bowl. And while you can tell me he's a dinosaur and he lost in the playoffs, and McCarthy does have a Super Bowl. You can't say McCarthy can't get over the hump because McCarthy did get over the hump. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be either Brady or it's going to be Dable. That's going to be the next head coach of the Bills. But I do wonder if in any of these open jobs, if any of these owners look at the resume and the stuff that we've talked about here in Nashville about Mike McCarthy and said, you really want to go all in on a Matt Nagy or a Robert Saleh when Mike McCarthy, whose resume is the same as John Harbaugh's, is out there? I struggle with that. Now, I'm also going to say this when it comes to Sean McDermott in Buffalo. Because, again, as a casual viewer of the Buffalo Bills, and I'd say if they play 17 games, how many Buffalo Bill games do you think we watch in a season? I'd say probably 10, are in prime time or the 325 game, national TV for us to watch. I'd say about 10 of 17. And then we've watched them in the playoffs. So when it comes to the Bills, I think I have a decent enough feel for their team. That team fucking stinks. Like, Josh Allen is a really, really good. Deion Dawkins, the left tackle, very good. Outside of that team sucks. Their defense sucks. Their defense used to be the toughest in the league. And look, they've had guys get older and they've missed on draft. I mean, they stink. And their receivers, Keon Coleman and Brandon Cooks and Khalil Shakir. And I like Shakir, but he's a nobody. Like, if Shakir leaves Buffalo, he's not going to go anywhere and do anything. Gabriel Davis, the reclamation project of him. That team stinks. And I'm not even sure that Like James Cook is that great of a running back. Like I know he was an all-pro this year, but I'm not a huge James Cook guy. He seems to always come up short when it matters, including that, I think, just disastrous fumble when Buffalo was really getting going and was really big. I mean, I'm not a huge James Cook guy. I think you can go get another James Cook, and it's not very, very hard to figure that out. So that's the thing right there. That I do think it was fair that Buffalo fired McDermott. I think they're going to try something different. And there's one thing that I think these teams do think. And in some cases, you'll look as stupid as the Titans firing Mike Vrabel, where everyone's like, you fired that guy and now he's in the AFC Championship game? And I think it was a lot more complicated than that, but that's a different discussion. But Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, held a press conference last week after they fired John Harbaugh. And he talked about, I really want to look at these coaches that were the hottest coaches on the market 6 or 7 years ago. And they went somewhere where they didn't have a quarterback. And it didn't work out for them for whatever reason. I'd like to look at them. Now, again, they've interviewed guys like Joe Brady and Cliff Kingsbury and things like that. But I look at that, and I took 2 messages from that. Number one, I don't think Steve Bisciotti thinks John Harbaugh is that good of a coach. So when he says, like, hey, I'd like to go take a look at these guys that failed elsewhere. I mean, he's talking about a Mike McDaniel, or he's talking about an Arthur Smith, or he's talking about a Brian Daboll, that we, again, all are like, oh, ew, God, why would you want him? He's like, they went to a bad organization with a bad general manager, with no quarterback. No coach can win with that. And I think he's also thinking, we have Lamar Jackson. Guys that are not good coaches will become good coaches because we have Lamar Jackson. John Harbaugh, who I considered firing before Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh is fine, but he's not this get on your hands and knees and pray to God and bring him in coach. And I think that's how Bisciotti felt. Now, he's not going to come out and say that. He's not going to come out and say what Eric Dickerson said to Jeff Fisher, which was, man, you're just a coach. But I do think that's what he believes. I wonder if the Pagulas feel the same way about McDermott, where they look at McDermott and they're like, you know what? You're just a coach. Like, and you're not even that great of a coach. We can go get another coach. What we can't do is we cannot go get another Josh Allen. So that's kind of where I sit on the Sean McDermott front. Now, should the Titans be interested in Sean McDermott? Plus, Easton has some reporting that I do want to get to in just a second. But first, as I always want to do on the Stillman & Company program, I want to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Again, they were out at my house last week. They could have charged me $10,000 on the spot, and I would have paid it. And instead, they said, you know what? It's not worth it. Do this instead. And if you don't like it, call us back, and then we'll do it. But hey, let's make sure that we're getting the most bang for your buck. And that means bang for your buck. If it doesn't include using Hiller, they're okay with that because they care about you. Because they know when my HVAC goes out, whenever that day may come, they're going to be the ones that are going to fix it. They know that whenever I've got a major plumbing issue, they're going to be the ones doing the work. So they will take care of the customer on every job because they want you to know, hey, this is a partnership. And that's what they did with me. They sent the project manager out to the house. He took a look at it. He went up to the HVAC system. He went down to the water heater. We were all throughout the home, and he was like, we went to the electrical panel, and he was like, look, in order to do this, it's going to be a massive job. Try this with your home humidifier before installing this and calling us back out here. Honesty. That's why I love Hiller. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and they leave it clean and better than they found it. You tell them Jared Stillman is the reason that you are talking to Hiller because they will say, hey, Jared is a fine partner of ours the way they are a fine partner of this program. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Proud sponsors of the Predators, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, let's get to the Titans. and whether or not the Titans are interested in Sean McDermott, who, again, I wouldn't say it was shocking. This was a lot. I'd say it's a little bit more surprising than Harbaugh and Tomlin, but not a ton. Like, shocking would be if the Texans fired DeMeco Ryans today, which, by the way, I felt bad for DeMeco yesterday, but he fucked his team over by not switching the quarterback out. And I know, they're going to give CJ $60 million a year. And so you don't want, once you make the change, now it's in his head, but he was awful yesterday. But again, I don't think that we thought that Sean McDermott was going to come available. And so now this does change the discussion. It should. If you're the Titans and you're doing your due diligence and you interviewed every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be your head coach, and now Sean McDermott's out there, but you're like, no, we're too far along in the process. We wasted our fucking time talking to Jason Garrett, but we're way too far along in the process here. We're just going to go ahead with Matt Nagy. Then I think that's pretty stupid. So that's first thing there. Now, again, the poll. Do you want Sean McDermott to coach the Titans over the reported finalists of Matt Nagy, Robert Saleh, or Jeff Hafley? 83% of you say yes. According to Easton Freeze, I'm not sure that's going to happen. Easton saying on Twitter, and by the way, Easton had some really good reporting over the weekend and had some great report. He must have like a GPS on one of these guys' cars, because he had the story that Mike McCarthy had gone to dinner with Brinker and Borgonzi before all this happened. And he had the story that last night, Matt Nagy was out at dinner with the Titans brass as well. But Easton Freeze puts out there on Twitter, this makes the whole coaching cycle even more insane, but it should have minimal impact on the Titans' plans. I still expect them to come to a decision in the next 24 to 48 hours. If anything, it might make Robert Saleh think twice before jumping on to sign tonight if the Titans hand him a contract. So Easton is saying, as far as the McDermott thing is concerned, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. Can I ask why? Like, I understand the idea that not every coach is a fit for what you're trying to do. And I understand that, like, I get it. I understand that maybe McDermott's not a fit for the Titans. I understand that maybe the Titans, even though they've said that they don't want an offensive coach, maybe they do want an offensive coach. This is what it looks like to me when it comes to the Titans search. And I could be wrong about this, but you know me and the duck theory. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably most likely a duck. It looks to me like Mike Borgonzi has wanted to hire Matt Nagy this entire time. That's what it looks like. Like, it looks like they fired Callahan and, we're going to do all the research and we're going to leave every stone unturned and Amy put Mike Borgonzi in charge of the coaching search. And when I saw that, I thought it's going to be Nagy. And here's why I think it's going to be Nagy. Because this would then put everybody on the same timeline. Instead of, okay, we're mad at Rand today, we're mad at Vrabel yesterday, we're mad at J-Rob the day before that, we're mad at Callahan this year. Now instead of that, it's, all right, Brinker hired Borgonzi and has now been demoted to where he originally was, which is essentially assistant general manager. Borgonzi is the general manager. Not impressive in his first year. The team didn't improve by a single game. Cam Ward is the quarterback. Not impressive in his first year. Has talent. Lowest QBR in the NFL. He's hurt. Who knows if he's the guy or not? So then you hire Matt Nagy, and what will not happen is, well, we need Jared. We need to give Matt Nagy a quarterback of his choice. No. It's going to be, if Cam doesn't make it, Nagy's gone, Borgonzi's gone, Brinker's gone, and they start over. That's what's going to happen. But it has felt like they've wanted to hire Matt Nagy the whole time. and all this other stuff is just a dog and pony show. I mean, I don't understand. Like, and again, reporters can only do what they're told. Like, they can only report what they're told. So when we look at somebody like Diana Rossini, who when Vrabel was the head coach here, was kind of a mouthpiece for Vrabel and a mouthpiece for the Titans, and Diana has sort of not really done that as much anymore. I will give Diana credit here. The Titans told her, we're not firing Mike Vrabel. So what did Diana do? She reported what the Titans told her. The truth is the Titans lied. They lied to Diana. So yesterday, a lot of the reporters were coming out and saying the Titans feel good enough about their process. They feel good enough about their research that Robert Saleh has already made it to the finalist segment of the coaching search. And I thought, that does not pass the smell test. And it shouldn't pass the smell test. Think about this. They have interviewed every coach possible. Like, they wanted to interview Chris Shula, and he said, no, thank you. But they have interviewed every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be the next head coach of the Titans. They reportedly had interest in Harbaugh. Again, I don't think they ever thought they were going to land Harbaugh. I don't think they ever would have given Harbaugh the money that it would have taken to get Harbaugh. And I don't think they would have given Harbaugh the power that it would have taken to get Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh used the Titans as leverage, and the Titans used Harbaugh as credibility. Because a lot of you people out there are like, hey, they were willing to go all in on John Harbaugh, so that shows you their commitment. And I'm like, they were willing to get on a plane to go visit with him so that he could use them as leverage to get the job he wanted, which is not a great job. Now, it's a better job than your job, but it's not a great job. Not really following on that one, but okay. They had dinner with McCarthy. They brought him in for an entire day. They interviewed everybody. Now they get to the finalist segment of this, and they tell the world it's going to be Hafley, Stefanski, and Nagy. And then Stefanski takes the Falcons job. So now it's going to be Hafley and Nagy. And now it looks pretty obvious that Hafley is going to take the Miami job. So then that leaves you with one person, Nagy. The Titans have a Zoom scheduled with Robert Saleh. He loses. So now it's like, well, why don't you just come on down? You don't have anything to do. You're not getting ready for the Rams in the NFC Championship game. And why don't you just fly your ass on down here? And then that way we can still say we have three finalists, even though one of them is going to take the Dolphins job. And you're finalist number 2, and then there's Matt Nagy. That's what this looks like to me. It looks like to me that they just said, well, we need to get another finalist in here, and Saleh's up next, so let's just pay the $3,000 to fly him from San Francisco first class and put him up at the Thompson Hotel and be done with it. Like, that's what it looks like to me. That the Titans have gone out of their way this entire coaching search to sit there and try to tell you, we interviewed everybody. And after we interviewed everybody, we determined that Matt Nagy is the best guy out there. Again, when this process started, I asked Mike Borgonzi directly about Matt Nagy on purpose because I felt like this is where this was going. Now, back to the original question. Should the Titans alter their plans with Jeff Hafley, Matt Nagy, and Robert Saleh set as the finalists for their head coaching job? Should they alter them to consider Sean McDermott? Yes! Yes! And here's the reason why they should, in my opinion, consider Sean McDermott. Because even though every situation is unique in the NFL, and so one guy might have a lot of success at his first job, and he might not have a lot of success at his second job. And while Josh Allen is basically a unicorn, a 6'5", 240-pound behemoth who runs like a deer, can throw the ball anywhere, and over the course of 3 years in the NFL, went from the guy who couldn't hit the blind side of a barn to now the broadside of a barn to now being one of the best passers in all of football, if not the best passer. And there's really nothing about Cam Ward and Josh Allen that's similar at all. He did develop a quarterback. He was the head coach when they took a quarterback project and they played him, and he developed into a star quarterback. So that is the one thing on McDermott's resume that you cannot knock. Their defense was shitty at the end of his tenure. He was a defensive coach. That's kind of a red flag. Not the biggest red flag. Vrabel had some shitty defenses here, but it's certainly a little bit of a red flag. His game management, I thought in those big playoff games, I thought was terrible. I thought his game management, they played a Thursday night football game. And this is why I'm totally cool with Buffalo firing McDermott in a vacuum. They played a Thursday night football game at Houston earlier this year. Davis Mills was quarterbacking the Texans, and Davis Mills got the job. Like, he understood, hey, man, your job is to go in there and to run, punt, throw it short, put that defense back on the field. You do not need to play hero ball. The opposite of what C.J. Stroud tried to do in these playoffs, and that's why Houston's ass is at home. But they played Davis Mills on Thursday Night Football, and it was early in the second half, and it was a 4th and short, and they decided to go for it. And I want to say it was like a 6-point game at the time, and I thought to myself, there's 4 more possessions in the game. The other team has Davis Mills at quarterback. And the last thing the Texans are going to do is say, okay, Davis, put the Superman cape on and go out there and do it. Kick the field goal. Kick the field goal. Because this is going to be an ugly game. I think they sacked Josh Allen 8 times in that game. And I said, kick the field goal. Because while, yes, you've got Josh Allen, and so every 4th down should be we're going for it, we can do it, we know, we got. While that's the case, this Texan defense is really good. You're going to have to win ugly. It's like the boot camp instructor says, we're here to get cute, so let's get ugly. In order to win this game, you've got to win this ugly against this Texan defense. Kick the field goal. This is going to be a field possession. This is going to be a field position. This is going to be how many possessions do we have? Field goal. We win at the buzzer. It's going to be that game. I know with Josh, you want to go out there and you want to throw it for 400 yards and you want to score 45 points, but you're not going to do that on the Texan defense. So let's just play smart. And they went for it. And they didn't get it. And in the end, they were down by 6, 8 points, whatever it was. And Josh is having to drop back in the 2-minute drill, and he's getting his ass sacked because early in the game, they didn't realize the game they were going to have to play. They wanted to go to Houston and play their game. And it was very obvious that you're going to have to win a different style. And the good coaches can adjust to that. And I don't know if McDermott can do that, because far too often I've looked at these Bills teams and I'm like, what's he doing out there? And that included against the Broncos on Saturday when they decided we're going to try to go in before halftime and score some points. Dude, this is the Bronco defense. There's a second half to play. There will be a time and a place for Josh to go win you the game. Before halftime is not that time. And I know, Josh fumbled the ball, and I forget who it is that knocked it out, but was it Hafunga? I can't remember. Whoever knocked it out made a very good play, but you should have just gone to the locker room. And that's a coach who, again, I feel like he struggles reading the game situation. So, yes, there are knocks on McDermott, but are we really going to compare McDermott to Robert Saleh? I don't understand where Titans Twitter got off on this whole Robert Saleh thing last night, where it was like, Lord, please hire Robert Saleh. I'm like, really? That's how we feel about Robert Saleh? Lord, please. His record was terrible with the Jets. They drafted a quarterback number 2 overall. They did nothing to develop him. Saleh, go read the Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt story. That year that Aaron Rodgers got hurt, all Saleh did behind the scenes was make excuses about, what am I supposed to do? Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Here's the first rule of coaching and excuse making is concerned. Don't make your own excuses. Let everybody with eyes make them for you. Robert Saleh called a meeting of his coaches and was so concerned about leaking that he threatened to take their cell phones. He sat down, again, with grown-ass men. Like, this is their careers, their livelihoods. And he said, whoever the leaker is, if you come forward right now, you're not going to get in trouble. Dude, this is not smoking pot in the 10th grade. And that's the guy that you guys are like, please be our coach. So I think that's kind of crazy. And finally, before I get to your reaction here, I have a hot take when it comes to what the Bills should do. And I don't think the Bills are going to do this. But this is what I think the Buffalo Bills should do. If I was Terry Pagula and I was worth $7.5 to $8 billion, and I had a new stadium that I was opening up next year, and I have the best total quarterback in the NFL in his prime while he's healthy, I'd call Nick Saban. I would pick up the phone, and I would call Nick Saban, and I would offer Nick Saban $20 million to be the coach of the Bills. Now, Nick Saban may say, I'm retired. I'm not interested. I'm not going to go down that path. I'm happy. Miss Terry and I, we do our thing. But it's $20 million a year. You go to a team that makes the playoffs every year. You've got the franchise quarterback. And who can Nick Saban hire as his offensive coordinator? Brian Daboll, who was his offensive coordinator at Alabama when they won the national championship with Jalen Hurts and Tua. Buffalo needs somebody who can manage the game, can manage the team, and really take ownership of the organization. You don't want to put that on your quarterback. That's what they may do. If they hire Joe Brady to be the head coach, Josh Allen is going to run the team. Do you want to do that? Joe Burrow is trying to run the team in Cincinnati, and it's not working because Joe needs a real coach. Baltimore has decided we want Lamar to do that. I think that's crazy. Tom Brady can do that. Peyton Manning can do that. Very few of these guys are Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. I'd do what it takes to get Nick Saban. Is there a number Nick Saban would say yes to? I think $20 million might be it. You're going to be the highest paid coach in the league, and you're going to walk into a team that is ready to compete for the Super Bowl. That's what I would do. And I don't know if Buffalo won't do it because Buffalo is hell-bent on getting Joe Brady to be the coach or Brian Daboll to be the coach, or because they think Saban is past his prime, or because Saban wouldn't do it. Maybe Saban truly is retired. But I'd make Nick Saban tell me I am truly retired. I have no interest in coaching, because if you don't want to coach a team that's quarterbacked by Josh Allen, then you really don't want to coach. If you don't want to coach a team that's quarterbacked by Josh Allen for $20 million a year, a team that has made the playoffs 8 of the last 9 seasons, then you really do not want to coach. And that's okay. But I'd make Nick Saban tell me that. Because to me, that's exactly who they need. Nick Saban would not get spooked out on the sidelines in the AFC Championship game by Andy Reid. And Andy Reid is a great coach. And maybe Andy out-schemes Nick. That's possible. But Saban's not going to get spooked out before halftime. Saban's going to be able to handle the media. Saban's going to be able to handle the attention. Saban's going to be able to hold everybody outside of Josh accountable. And I think Saban can hold Josh accountable because he's Nick Saban. I heard them talking this morning. Rex Ryan on TV was pumping up Belichick. Belichick has lost his mind. He is off in cuckoo land. You know, it's like, hey, do we need to take the keys away from Paw because Paw ain't the same anymore? That's Belichick. I don't think that's Saban. So I would say if I'm the Pagulas and I'm the Bills, I'd go get Nick Saban. Justin says, I can't see Saban coming back to the NFL, especially since we all know why he left college football. Too much money and ego in the league for Saban. Right. The reason Saban left college football, in my opinion, is because the game had changed, and now you have to, with the game changing, you have to kind of be on an even playing field. Alabama used to go get the best players every year. And without the transfer portal, he could look at Quentin Williams or Derrick Henry and say, you need to sit the bench. All right? And they'd say, yes, sir, Coach Saban. And it ended up working out for them, but that was kind of the way it was. Well, transfer portal comes out, and now all of his offensive linemen that he's developing, those guys are going other places to go play right away. And then everybody has money. I mean, I look at Miami and Indiana and Vandy. Vandy has money. So that makes it harder for Saban to win. You go to the NFL with Josh Allen, you have that built-in advantage on almost every other team you're going to play. With the exception of Kansas City, whose quarterback is hurt right now, Cincinnati, whose quarterback is always hurt, and maybe New England. Everybody you play in the AFC is beneath you at quarterback. Justin Herbert, beneath you. Trevor Lawrence, beneath you. CJ Stroud, beneath you. Everybody in the AFC is beneath you when you've got Josh Allen. So it's almost like college, where Saban has the built-in advantage. Sanchez says, this is a terrible idea. Saban sucked in Miami in the NFL. Yeah, with Dante Culpepper and Cleo Lemon at quarterback. You guys are leaving out the most important part. Josh fucking Allen. Again, do you guys want to go with Brian Dable? Because that's what it looks like it's going to be. So if you're telling me Nick Saban to Buffalo is a non-starter for you, that, oh, Saban, again, Saban may not take the job, and I get that. I'd make him an offer he can't refuse. $20 million a year, Josh Allen is your quarterback. I mean, if you're not going to take that, then you're really not going to return to coaching, and that's fine. It's your life. But for you people to sit there and tell me you want Brian Dable to coach a team over Nick Saban, that's crazy. Crazy. I've seen a couple of people in here saying still having the 2:00 show. As of right now, yes. As of right, this is a special show. Breaking news, reacting to the Sean McDermott stuff. But yeah, I still plan to be on at 2:00. All right. Let's get to some of your reaction here on the program. Again, I'm still trying to figure out where this Robert Saleh thing is coming from with the, Robert Saleh. We got to have Robert Saleh. Still trying to figure that out, but hey, who knows? TDG says that scapegoated Lamar and got rid of John and Josh, got rid of Sean. I don't know what that means. Got rid of John and Josh. Lamar got rid of John and Josh got rid of Sean. I don't think Josh Allen, and I don't, again, know the relationship. I don't think this was an Elway, Dan Reeves, Pat Bowlen situation where Josh went to the owner and said, get him out of here. It may have been, and we'll probably find out in the coming days if that was the case. I just don't think that's the case. I think Terry Pagula sat up there and said, I'm sick and fucking tired of losing in the playoffs with Josh Allen as my quarterback. And it's one thing to lose to Mahomes or Burrow. We just lost to Bo Nix with a broken foot. Brett says, did you know that Nagy's contract is up? Chief fans want him gone, and apparently they don't plan on extending him, yet the Titans will hire him out of the 16 candidates so far. Yes, I do know that Matt Nagy's contract is up. That was kind of a big, obvious subplot to this, and it is hard, even though I think every situation is different. And I think in Kansas City, they're ultimately going to bring in Mike Kafka to be the offensive coordinator. But I ultimately believe that, like, Andy Reid probably feels like they need a change, just some new blood. And I think that Nagy probably feels like he needs a change just because everybody, no matter what they do in Kansas City that's good or bad, Nagy won't really get credit. And what seems to be happening from a public perception standpoint is everything bad with Kansas City's offense is Nagy's fault, and everything good with Kansas City's offense is Andy's doing. So I think that's just, they're moving on. I wouldn't say, okay, don't hire him because Kansas City's not giving him a new contract, but it is a red flag. And it is a red flag that some people will probably overlook. James says, Vrabel is killing it, but let's be honest, he always wanted to be in New England. PK says, don't get me started on the great Mike Vrabel. 2:00 show. Today we'll talk at length about Mike Vrabel making the AFC Championship game. We will be way more in depth on the Titans coaching search at 2:00. This is kind of more McDermott based. And do you go out and try to get McDermott? And again, it feels like they're not going to try to go get McDermott. Again, as Easton said, I want to put this up here for everybody to see. As Easton reported at A to Z Sports, he expects the Titans, this to have a minimal impact. The news that Sean McDermott has been fired to have a minimal impact on the Titans' plans, and he thinks they will still come to a decision in the next 24 to 48 hours. And again, I think we all believe Jeff Hafley is going to the Dolphins. So that means it's really between Saleh, who they've never worked with before. Not one of these guys on their coaching committee has worked with Robert Saleh. Not Borgonzi, not Brinker, not McKenzie, not Ziegler, not Dave, whoever it is, the fifth guy in there that nobody's ever heard of. None of those guys have ever worked with Robert Saleh before. They haven't interviewed him, and they've already skipped him to being a finalist. I'm not here to do a endorsement for my credit card, but my credit card automatically gives me gold status with Marriott and Hilton. A couple weeks ago last week when Lindsay and I went down to the beach, it was great because I went to go check in and it was a Hilton property, and I went to go check in and the line at the resort to check in was like 12 deep. But Hilton Gold members can just pop right in. And so I don't even think before this I had stayed a single night at a Hilton hotel in the last 5 years. But I'm gold status. I just skip. That's what it feels like with Saleh. That he just skipped ahead for no reason other than they want it to look like there's real competition for the job. Caleb says they were less than 24 hours away from offering $20 million a year. They have money. We don't know that the Titans were going to do that. That I can't say. Everyone's like, well, they were willing to go all in on Harbaugh. Were they really? Were they willing to go all in on John Harbaugh, to give John Harbaugh the kind of money that he wanted? Or did the Titans line that up so that people would think that they were actually trying to go get John Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh lined it up so that he could get what he wanted from the Giants? And again, I go back to the power structure. Everybody in the local media told me that John Harbaugh, he's not necessarily going to want full control. He didn't have full control in Baltimore. Why would he want full control in Nashville? And I'm like, so you people think that John Harbaugh is going to take your job when he's got options? He's going to take your job, and then he's going to have a 3-14 general manager tell him who to draft with the 4th pick. Well, I don't think it's that important. Really? That's why it took 3 extra days after Harbaugh decided he was going to go to the Giants in order to get the deal done because Harbaugh didn't want any part of reporting to Joe Shane? Yeah, it mattered. Would the Titans have actually done that? Like, would the Titans have actually, after Mike Borgonzi got full control 3 weeks ago, would the Titans have actually said, okay, I just got full control. Now here's the full control to you, Mr. Harbaugh? And I don't think they would have done that. So I don't think that they would have ever actually hired John Harbaugh. I think the whole thing was a charade. I kind of feel like this entire coaching search is a charade. That, again, they knew it was going to be Matt Nagy in the end. They wanted to interview all these candidates, so it looked like they did all the work and that they talked to every coach and they've determined that Matt Nagy's the best fit. And so he's our guy. Trust us. And I think it's going to blow up in there. I don't think it matters because I don't think winning press conferences and winning the fans over with a hire ever matters. But I do think that they were worried if they had just hired Nagy. I think they were worried about the fans being like, why'd you just hire Nagy? Why didn't you do a whole search? When I would have had more respect with, hey, I know Matt Nagy. I worked with Matt Nagy. I've seen Matt Nagy hold people accountable. I saw what Matt Nagy did with Patrick Mahomes. I saw what Matt Nagy did when he came back to Kansas City. I saw Matt Nagy coach. You didn't. I did. This guy can coach. Trust me, I will bet my career on it. I would have more respect for that than I would for, we interviewed everybody and Matt Nagy was the best candidate, which is what they're trying to do. Richard said, Amy is on record saying she didn't want to coach with all the power because of Jeff Fisher, so Harbaugh wasn't a real option. I don't know. Maybe Amy's changed her mind over the last couple of years when you see other coaches have that kind of success. But there may be something to that. Pac-Man says, smash that like button, folks. I was kind of disappointed yesterday. Our Sunday show that we decided to do didn't have as many likes. It had a bunch of viewers. Actually had your typical number of viewers that we have for a show. But I was surprised. I was expecting that we were going to have more likes for whatever that's worth. And let me just say this. I believe that when it comes to the hierarchy of the jobs that are out there, number one, without a doubt, is the Buffalo job because they have Josh Allen. They have Josh Allen and they have an owner who spends money. That's the number one job. Number two, you can debate between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I think Lamar Jackson's very polarizing, even amongst people inside the NFL. And Lamar Jackson's getting older. And so I could see some coaches that would say, yes, Baltimore has a history of winning and an owner that spends, and there's some respect there. But at the same time, Lamar's approaching 30. He takes hits. He's not always available. Again, there was the Baltimore Sun story about he stays up all night playing video games. That or Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh takes great pride in never firing the coach, which job security would be important to me. I think they're kind of right there, tied 2 and 3, and then every other job. And your job is probably not dead last. I think the Raiders' job would be dead last, but your job is down there. You, Cleveland, the Raiders. Unstable ownership. What doesn't feel like a commitment financially to winning. Question marks at quarterback. Question marks about leadership. You're down there with Cleveland. You're down there with the Raiders. Cleveland will spend. The problem is Jimmy Haslam gets in the way too much, and their quarterback situation is a mess. The Raiders, I guess their quarterback situation isn't as much of a mess because they're going to draft Mendoza, so you know what they're going to do at quarterback, but you're answering to Tom Brady, who is not a football coach. He's not a personnel guy. He's just the greatest player who ever lived, and so they're just going to put him in charge, a la Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, and I think that's a terrible decision, and I think their owner's a total boob. And I don't think Pete Carroll is a 3-win coach, and yet Pete Carroll even looked bad in that situation. So I think you're down there towards the bottom. And if there was any question, the fact that Harbaugh didn't even entertain your audience, the fact that Stefanski lined it up so he'd go back to you after he went to Atlanta and could take that job, and it looks like Jeff Hafley's doing the same thing in Miami, I think that proves any narrative out there that, no, Jared, this is a good job. Brett says, it looks like Tic Tac Titan is trying to start drama with PK on Twitter. Well, haven't they already had they had a beef a couple weeks ago. I don't know what the latest on that is. But I will probably go check it out. Again, the plan is today that we are going to be doing a live show at 2 o'clock right here on Stillman & Company like we normally do on the 440 Sports Network. Like and subscribe. And during coach season, hit that notification button because every time we go live, you're going to want to get a notification so you do not miss a show. Like and subscribe. Thank you. We will be back at 2 o'clock where we will be more Titan specific and less McDermott specific. And again, Easton Freeze is saying, don't expect the McDermott news to change anything on the Titans front. And that itself is a little disappointing. We'll see everybody at 2 o'clock. Like and subscribe. Stillman & Company on the 440 Sports Network.